Hey guys, welcome to Bookish Islander. My name is Juan and today I'm going to be doing my January 2019 wrap-up. I'm going to be going through each one of the books that I read last month and talk briefly about them. Some of the books that I'll be talking about today I've already reviewed on my channel, so whenever I hit one of those books I will point it out in case you're interested, so that you can go back to my playlists and find the book in question and watch the full review. But before I do that, I want to take a moment to thank people who have subscribed to my channel and also people who've left comments on my video so far. January 2019 was the first month I was on BookTube. After thinking about making videos for the longest time, possibly over a year and a half, if not longer, and coming up with excuses why I shouldn't do it and why I would be terrible at it, I finally decided to do it last month. And I must say that the response has been really good. First of all, I'm enjoying doing this. This is great fun. I love doing it. It can be frustrating and I struggle with some of the technical aspects, and I'm hopefully getting better. Then, like, setting up a camera in my apartment and talking into its lens, it's not something that I would describe as a natural thing to do. So it takes some practice, but hopefully I'm getting better at it as well. But mostly being on BookTube, it's beginning to feel like I'm on BookTube. Like, I'm starting to feel like I'm part of a community, and I love that. That's what I wanted more than anything else, and I'm getting that already. So I want to thank each one of my subscribers, and I hope more people, you know, get encouraged and join in, and mostly interact. You know, I look at all the comments and I try to reply to all of them, and you know, I would love to see some interaction here in my channel and also in other channels. I mean, there's so many fantastic channels out there that I love, and I try to emulate, but I also try to do my, you know, my own thing. Anyway, so thank you to all, and here's my wrap-up for January 2019. Okay, so the first book that I finished last month was Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov. I love Lolita, and I love Penin, which is a short comic novel which made me laugh out loud. So I decided to read Pale Fire just because I wanted to read. I thought that Nabokov was my bag. Pale Fire wasn't really in my wheelhouse. I did try. I struggled with it. It's a short book. It's a prose poem, I think that's how you would call it. It's basically, there is a narrative to it, but it's all told in verse. So maybe that's not a, well, I don't know, whatever it is, you know, you get it. It's a long poem telling a story. So that took me out of it. It felt like a lot of it was very mundane. But I know it's a book that a lot of people love. So if you love Pale Fire, and if you can tell me how you read it or how you think that book should be approached to be enjoyed, I'm more than willing to give it a second go, because I think I missed out on something. I don't know, what do you think? So that's Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov. Then the next book that I read, the next book that I watched and the next movie that I read, no, the next book that I read in January was a rather more successful reading experience, and that was Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. I won't be saying a lot about that book right now because I already made a review of it. So if you're interested in my thoughts on Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities, and if you like to comment and share your own thoughts, then I'd suggest you go back and check that video. It's under my my book review playlist. There aren't that many books or that many videos on that playlist yet, so I'm sure you'll find it easily. But anyway, it's a book that comes highly recommended. Next, I read Nightwood by Junia Barnes. Again, I made a review video, so go ahead and watch it if you're interested. It's a modernist classic. it's a lesbian or an LGBTQ cult classic book. It's interesting. I appreciated a lot of it. I'm glad I read it, but I couldn't quite connect with it. I think it's a hugely flawed book, but I'll go more into the impression that it made on me on that review video, so go check it out if you want. Next, I read Mao II by Don DeLillo. Now, Don DeLillo is this giant of American letters. You know, I studied him at college. I read White Noise, which I remember really liking, and I think I read it more than once. I probably did. Mao II I enjoyed. I'm not sure Don DeLillo is my thing. I'm currently reading Libra and struggling with it. But Mao II is a shorter book. It's not that complicated to read. It deals with, there's a lot going on in there, terrorism, writing, the role of the writer in modern American life. It's a pre-9/11 book that almost reads like a post-9/11 book. I recommend it, but you know, I'm not sure Don DeLillo is my thing. It's a very disturbing, it's a profoundly disturbing book. Anyway, if you're interested in Don DeLillo's Mao II, go check out my review. Next, I read Hallucinating Foucault by Patricia Dunker. Hallucinating Foucault, it's a little known book, definitely a lot less well known than the previous book that I read last month. I read it because I had read it before, years ago, and I still had the same copy. And I don't know, it was a fortuitous encounter, I guess, but I'm so glad I read it. I'm so glad I reread it. And it's a book that I highly recommend. It's probably the book that I read last month. It was my favorite read last month, and I recommend it. Again, I made a review video of that, so check it out if you're interested in Hallucinating Foucault by Patricia Dunker. And then the last book that I read last month, which I finished, I think yesterday or the day before, it's a Spanish language book called Embalse. I don't believe it's been translated into English, so I'm sorry about that, but it's by an author whose work, some of his work has been translated into English, and that's Argentinian writer Cesar Aira. So it was a very intriguing novel. It takes place during a summer vacation in the countryside down there in Argentina. There's this middle class family, nothing extraordinary about them. The first half of the book, probably just over the first half of the book, it's dull. It's dull as hell. I mean, but I think it's on design. The book seems to reproduce those kind of, it seems to reproduce the dullness of being on vacation in the countryside where nothing happens and everything is told in a lot of detail every time they go into town to do grocery shopping, every time they go for a walk. All of that it's told, but there is an ominous atmosphere which then comes alive in the second half of the book, which is very surprising, and a lot of crazy stuff happens. I don't know. I didn't love it. I struggled with the first half, but it wasn't a long book, so I stuck with it, and I'm glad I did. I don't know what to make of the second half, but I'm definitely interested. The good news is that I'm definitely became interested in Cesar Aira's work. It's a writer that had been on my radar for a really long time, but I'd never had the chance to read any of his books. So I'm looking forward to reading more of them. In fact, I have one on my TBR list for February, but I'd rather not mention it because as soon as I start talking about something on my TBR, then something happens in my brain that I think my brain is tricked into feeling that I've already read it, and therefore I lose all interest, and I really want to read it, so I'd rather not talk about it much. So anyway, those were my 6 books. Did you read any of them? Have you read any of them? Do you have any recommendations for me based on what I've read this month and what I responded to and what I didn't? What did you read in January? What did you like? What didn't you like last month? Please leave me a comment and I'll be glad to continue this conversation with you down there in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.